people who watch movies on the smartphones, this is how squirrel watches movie. Do not watch TV like squirrel. With Roku streaming machine, you put the movies on a big TV screen. Buy yourself best Christmas gift, Roku.
Welcome. I'm Coach Monique, and this is The Coach Show on Gay Life Television. First of all, I'd like to thank all my viewers for the overwhelming positive support that we've gotten. It's great to know that people find the show not only entertaining and fun, but most importantly, they find it useful in their lives. So we hope to continue programming, and thank you again. You may have noticed that my usual sidekick, Dan, is not here. He's flown the coop, so he'll be back with us in 2 weeks. My special guest this week is going to be Danielle Mock, and I can't tell you how happy I am to have her on the show. Our topic this week is forgiveness, and so Danielle will be joining us later in the show to talk about how forgiveness has impacted her life, her experiences with forgiveness, and how she handles it. This is a great week to showcase Danielle because the topic is forgiveness, and she is our Coach Monique confessional model. Today's topic, as we said, is forgiveness, and it's often a confusing topic because many people struggle with what forgiveness is and why we forgive. So first I'm going to start out with what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not turning the other cheek. It is not saying that what happened is okay. It is not condoning what happened. It is certainly not saying that the person or people do not deserve to be punished or even should be punished. Forgiveness, what it is the dictionary defines forgiveness as renouncing anger or resentment. To renounce means to reject or disown. It's not to be confused with not having feelings. So when we need to forgive people, oftentimes we have guilt, well, not necessarily guilt. Oftentimes with forgiveness we have hurt or maybe even despair or heartache. So those are feelings that we have. We can recognize that we have them. When we forgive, we recognize that we have those feelings, and we engage in self-care and take care of ourselves while we recognize that we have those feelings, but we're not defined by those feelings. When we don't forgive, we can be defined by those negative, hurtful feelings, and then we act out accordingly because we're connected with those feelings. And when we forgive, we acknowledge that we have them, but they no longer define us. And that's a serious distinction. Because when we don't forgive, those feelings really control us. My assistant Julia and I went out this past week on a sunny morning in Highland Park to ask people 3 seemingly simple questions about forgiveness. What does forgiveness mean to you? Is it easier to forgive yourself or others? And do you think the world would be a better place if people were more forgiving? We got some very insightful, sometimes beautiful answers. Even I had a lot of respect for these people because they were asked these questions off the cuff, and many people really had enlightened answers. And I think you will enjoy the video segment for that. So when we come back, you'll get to watch the video and we'll talk more about forgiveness. So enjoy the commercial. Hello, welcome back. If you're anything like me, you really enjoyed the insights that people shared in the videos. They spoke off the cuff and sometimes about something, forgiveness, that defies definition, but they were able to do it. We got some surprising answers, and I was touched by the people who gave great answers that were able to be compassionate to the person that hurt them, understanding that they may be struggling with things in their past, and really most important is understanding that when someone hurts you, it says more about them than it does about you. For example, we all have universally the need to forgive, and we hurt others and need to be forgiven. When someone hurts you, for example, they lie or they cheat, it can be very painful, even heart-crushing, but it doesn't say anything about you. It says something about the person who was willing to do that under those conditions and what was going on with them. And that's an important distinction. Just because we're hurting doesn't mean it says anything about us. Several of the people we asked stressed the importance of learning to let go for the sake to lessen their own healing. A very good friend of mine, Kathy Conley, once said, withholding forgiveness is like swallowing poison and waiting for the other person to die. You can get sick and even die, and the other person can walk away unscathed. Oftentimes we believe that we don't want to forgive because we feel like the other person doesn't deserve to be forgiven. But the truth is, we forgive for ourselves, because when we forgive, we stop being defined by what happened or defined by what the other person did, and we can move forward with more peace and more opportunities for happiness and better relationships. When we hold onto our hurts, it undermines our happiness and it negatively impacts our relationships. We treat others badly when we feel badly about ourselves and we have unresolved issues within ourselves. So one of the biggest markers for happiness and success in life is the quality of your relationships. So if you are withholding forgiveness, you are likely undermining and maybe damaging the relationships that you do have and not seeing the possibility and potential for those relationships to be better. There are certainly times when we have been victim or victimized by others, but once that time has passed, it's important to continue to try to work through that and understand potential gifts that we got from our hurt or to what happened. Sometimes the gift can be as simple as, hey, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And so what have you learned or what strengths have you uncovered about yourself? Oftentimes with forgiveness too, sometimes people want to work together. You're still in a relationship and they want to work together and they want you to heal. But sometimes the person who hurt us is no longer with us. We don't have access to them. Maybe they've died or they're just no longer in our lives. Or sometimes the person hurt us intentionally or even unintentionally, and they don't really care that we're hurting, or they may even take comfort in the fact that we're hurting. So it's important to do this for yourself. The need for forgiveness is universal, as I said before, because everyone gets hurt feelings. It's part of the human condition. From small slights from friends or families to even heart-crushing losses from strangers. If you have had something very dear being taken from you, such as a loved one or your money or your freedom or your well-being, and your only connection with that stranger or with that person is the heartache or the problems that occurred, it can be very hard and even feel unnatural to forgive them because that's your connection with them. However, forgiveness is good for you, because withholding it undermines your own happiness and peace and keeps you stuck in the past and defined from the circumstances that caused the problems to begin with. Not forgiving is bad for our health as well. There are well-documented negative side effects such as high blood pressure and heart disease, not to mention we are all familiar with all the physical wear and tear that stress has on our bodies. And when we don't forgive, it stresses us out. One of the most important markers for health and happiness in life is the quality of our relationships. And as I said, when you don't forgive and you stay stuck in that and you become an angry person, it undermines your relationships. It's important to understand the resistance to forgive can affect innocent people in our lives as well. So go back to a time maybe you have a cheating spouse and the marriage ends, and the spouse who was cheated on maybe years later is still vengeful and has negative feelings and is angry and broken up about that, and they talk badly about the other parent. This undermines children's happiness and can scar them for life. So sometimes we need to forgive for ourselves, but we need to understand when we can forgive, it helps other people as well. In our video segment, we ask people, is it easier to forgive yourself or others? For most people, the resounding answer was, it's easier to forgive others. Learning to forgive ourselves is just as important, if not more important, than forgiving others. We all make mistakes. When we know better, we do better. Having compassion for yourself and recognizing what's going on with you and within you when you're hurting will help you do better next time. When we forgive ourselves, we are happier. And as our happiness spreads, so that's always a positive. When we return, our very special guest, Danielle Mock, will be joining us to answer questions we posed during the video and to share some of her experiences and insights about forgiveness. You won't want to miss this. So we'll see you when we come back.
Hey, it's Coach Monique, and we're here on a beautiful November Sunday morning in Highland Park asking people their thoughts and feelings on forgiveness.
I think forgiveness means that you're willing to understand someone else's perspective.
Forgiveness is the ability to let things go, understand that everyone's human, everyone makes mistakes, and you can still love.
Forgiveness means to just let it go, to forgive, and I always say you forgive but don't forget. But my thing is, you forgive the person that harmed you, and doing that, you help yourself.
Wow, you're asking a big question with
the ability to allow yourself and others to say what they need to say and to understand what they're saying.
accepting and understanding a mistake or a wrong that's been done to you.
I accept your apology, more or less, so I forgive you for what you did.
I think it's letting go of the anger inside of you.
Forgiveness means not trying to get revenge, accepting the deed that the person did as maybe a defect in their personality or something that may be a reflection of something that has happened to them in the past.
It's easier to forgive others than self.
For others before myself. I'm the hardest one.
Much easier to forgive other people.
I think I'm harder on myself. I might be harder on myself.
It's both forgiving ourselves and forgiving others, because that's one of the hardest things to do in life.
I think it's easy to forgive myself.
It's harder to forgive myself because if I do something, I know it's wrong. And so I'm accountable for it, and I'm with myself all the time.
Definitely others. I have a harder time forgiving myself, unfortunately.
Myself, I don't think I forgive myself. I think I blame myself for everything.
Most definitely. Definitely.
Yes, it would.
Families are broken as a result. There's people who are holding on and harboring small things because of not forgiven. And when you let it go, it's so much better. So I do know the world will be better.
It'd be a much easier place. Yeah.
It would be a much better place if people were more forgiving and understanding and kind and compassionate and accepting.
More forgiving. I think the problem is people can't forget.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at the state of the whole world, politics, everything would be better if people could forgive and move on.
That's what it's all about in terms of peace.
I do think so. It's about time that we recognize that everybody has a share of what's here.
Danielle, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's great to have you with us today. Danielle is a very talented makeup artist here in Pittsburgh. I'm fortunate to have Danielle do my makeup before each of the shows here and during many of my photo shoots. So she's also a popular model and actress here in Pittsburgh and was recently featured at the Garbage Bag Gala as Studio Raw's model.
It was awesome.
You did great. You rocked that garbage bag.
Thank you. Ron said the same thing.
As you know, today's topic is forgiveness. You want to give us some insights about what that means for you?
Sure, I do. I actually think it's very important to forgive. I've unfortunately seen the repercussions of holding back forgiveness in personal relationships and family relationships, and I just don't really think it's worth the stress. I don't. I think it's more important to forgive.
That's really an evolved answer. Good for you.
Thanks.
Do you find it easier to forgive yourself or others?
Others. I am pretty tough on myself, which is probably most people, but I'm pretty tough on myself, I think. Yeah.
What strategies do you have for helping yourself to move into a place of forgiveness for yourself?
Honestly, I really lean on my husband a lot when I'm going through anything that is a little stressful, or I have to find ways to forgive, or even just support in general. I find that that's the best way, is my relationships outside of just the situation in general. So.
Well, relationships are really the backbone of life, and the quality of your relationships is such an indicator of happiness. And so, having someone who you can turn to and process with is so important.
I got a good one.
Well, that's good. You deserve him. Thanks. Can you share with us? Do you think the world would be a better place if people were more forgiving, and if so, why?
I do. I think that in general, I think if you're trying to better yourself, whether it's for a certain situation or just something that is going to bring balance to the situation, and forgiving obviously is a great way to just kind of move past whatever, whether it's a despair kind of heartache or forgiveness moment that you mentioned before, or if it's just something kind of petty. It's always good to just kind of let it be and just move on. I find that's the most important thing, to move on, forgive.
Now, let me ask you this. This is kind of a tricky question. I know it can be tricky for me. Do you find it easier to forgive the smaller, pettier things or the bigger things?
Big things. When my husband leaves his socks around, that drives me bonkers. However, in the big situation, those are definitely easier, I find, to forgive. I think that day-to-day people naturally just kind of get caught up with the petty things. And I think that's kind of a normal stressor, like traffic, stuff like that.
Yeah. And when forgiving yourself, do you find it easier to forgive yourself of the little things or the big things?
You know what? I find that the big things are kind of easier for me to forgive, because I recognize that I am human and I make mistakes, and I genuinely try to work on myself all the time and try to get better. And you know what? I'm not perfect. I make mistakes.
I'd say I sometimes struggle to forgive the little things more than the big things too. It's like the big things, you see the bigger picture and you're like, oh, that's really a life lesson. Where the little things can just like grind you down and you're like, why is this?
How'd that go?
Rewind that. Let's do that again. So I wanted to ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself. Besides forgiveness, the bigger picture of Danielle.
I graduated in 2008 with a theater performance degree, so I love to be performing anything artistic. I absolutely love. I really have kind of jumped around job-wise, so I'm pretty experienced with a lot of different things. Settled down and got married in 2011. Had to think about that for a second.
Oh, wow.
And been working with Ra, very artistic. I love music. I love theater. I love movies. That's kind of the gist. I love my dog a lot.
Very loving.
He's a huge part of my life. But that's in general. I'm actually really open to any kind of project, so I'm just kind of like overall kind of open person.
Yeah, well, yeah, I get that with you. On December 1st, Studio Ra's doing the Cabaret, and I heard a rumor that you were singing 2 different songs.
I am, and just recently decided to do a duet with a very nice man named Joel. So it's going to be 3 songs. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
What are the songs you're singing?
There's one that Dan picked out, which is Someone to Watch Over Me, which is very near and dear to my heart. So that's going to be a good one, especially for the occasion, because it's an event raising money for CORE. And that's, if people don't know, Center of Organ Recovery and Education. I believe I said that, right? And then another one is Big Spender. So I'm throwing back to
who doesn't like that?
Hey, Big Spender. I'm sorry, I'm done. But that's going to be a throwback to the theater. And then Joel's going to kick my butt. I can't remember the third name. I always screw it up. I think it's Baby Whatever It Takes. I think that's it.
Okay. Well, we would like to take this opportunity to present you with the Coach Monique Hall of Fame Happiness Award for your work with makeup, modeling, and acting here in Pittsburgh.
You guys.
Now, the coveted award is really the custom Coach Monique M&Ms.
I'm going to eat those.
As you should. That's what they're for.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you again for being such a great guest. And Danielle will be joining us in the last section of the show to read the confessionals, which only seems fitting.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And thank you. You've been a great guest. Okay, when we come back, we will talk more about the journey to forgiveness. So we've given some insights and made some discussions, had some discussions about forgiveness. And then when we come back, I'll give you some punch list of things to do to get yourself being happier and more forgiving. Thank you. Enjoy the commercial. Welcome back. Okay, now the work of forgiveness can be addressed. I want to preface and say here first, folks, I do not want to minimize or in any way downplay the work associated with real forgiveness. It's a process, and as I always say, it's about progress, not perfection. Many of you have had heartbreaking experiences, been horribly victimized, and suffered more than your fair share of unfairness. So it's not my intention to ever glaze over that. The work of forgiveness is not always easy. Looking at forgiveness, one of the ways to do that is to look at forgiveness as a doorway. And it might be a very small, cramped, dark doorway with jagged edges, and sometimes we have to crawl before we can walk. But on the other side of that doorway, greater peace and happiness and new beginnings can be possible. Sometimes we don't want new beginnings. We want what we had before what happened, but that's not always possible. We want what was taken away from us, and we can recognize that and acknowledge that, but not let that define us. Our true power lies in moving forward and being empowered. When you fail to forgive, you give your power away to the person or the circumstances that hurt you because you stay stuck in that situation. So here goes, a quick punch list, some ideas, food for thought around forgiveness. Recognizing the hate or the ill will you feel towards the person who wronged you does not affect you, but it does not affect them, but it does affect you. And that's really important. Know that the best revenge is happiness. Letting the other person who harmed you see that you not only survived but thrived can be very powerful. Recognize how you've grown and learned from the experience. What doesn't kill us does make us stronger. You're still here, so what have you learned, or in what ways have you grown because of your experience and what happened to you? Take note of the people who have helped you during these most difficult times. Were these people you would have gotten to know if it had not been for the unpleasant or terrible circumstances that you experienced? Recognizing that relationships are the backbone of a happy life. So honoring these relationships and being respectful and appreciative is really important. Be compassionate with yourself. This may be a long-standing issue, and you may have ruminated or kept it alive for a really long time. As you move onto your path to forgiveness, don't look back and about maybe previous inabilities to move forward. Simply look forward. Recognize the word forgive comes from the Greek word untie. The fastest way to disentangle yourself from the ugliness of what happened and the people it happened with is to forgive, so you can cut those bonds and move forward. Please stop telling your story of what happened to you. The caveat for this is if telling your story can help others, then do so constructively. But don't just tell your story so that other people can understand what a tough road to hoe you've had or to keep it alive and well. Just don't do it. It hurts you. Try to begin to see it from the other person's perspective. How might their story be different from yours? In cases of violence, addiction, widespread destruction, and totally unnatural acts, consider that the person who committed these acts is not healthy or well-balanced, because these are simply not the actions of someone who's healthy and well-balanced. That doesn't mean you condone it, but it can help you to understand. It's simply not natural to want to destroy others. Build better thoughts, and this is one of the most important things you can do. Retrain your brain, literally. When the time is right, begin to wish your enemy or the person who has wronged you well each time you think of them. This will help you to build new neural pathways to feel better, have more peace, and have a higher quality to your own life. It may seem unnatural or even illogical, but it works. At first, it may seem contrived. Continue to do it. You'll reap the benefits for the rest of your life. Today is the first day of the rest of your life, so start it off in a different way, and you'll have different results. Remember, most people don't need a therapist, they just need a change, and this can put you on the road to change today as you move forward. When we come back, Danielle will join me as we squeeze in a couple of Coach Monique confessionals. So, let's do that now. Welcome back, Danielle. So we're getting to the confessionals. We had over 30 people submit confessions and ask for advice. It was really kind of difficult, but I chose at least one around forgiveness since that was the topic. So what do they have to say?
All right, first one. My boyfriend of 11 years is not divorced.
Although he and his wife have been living separately for a number of years, never speak, and never attend events together, she still tells everyone they are married. She even posts on their social media page, "Happily married to my best friend," and posts old pictures of them together, even though he lives with me and we are a public couple. She has a class reunion coming up, and she has shifted her postings into high gear, and this really bothers me. Sometimes I worry if he is still living a double life. Although there is no evidence to support my concerns, he agrees she is being weird, but does not want to confront her. My question is, how can I learn to ignore her and stop creeping on his Facebook page?
Wow, this is kind of a complex one.
Yeah.
The first one is, I would say, after all this time of 11 years, is there a specific reason why you're not divorced? I mean, let's just be serious. Also, you mentioned that it's been 11 years, and you said that they have not lived together for several years, which leads me to believe that maybe the two of you got together before he left his wife. That speaks to two things. First of all, his level of commitment or issues he may have with commitment, and cheating. So you may be feeling these doubts about him because of your experience with him being the other woman. And so now you're thinking, well, maybe someone else is the other woman. Second of all, and I think it's really important, you might not like it, but they are married.
Yeah.
He's not posting current pictures. It could be one of two things. She could be just really stuck in the past, not forgiving and moving on, or she could be intentionally pushing your buttons. And if that's the case, you're letting her do it successfully. Also, consider that despite this being so upsetting to you, your boyfriend isn't really willing to do anything about it. He just wants to turn the other cheek and let it go. Consider that it's your boyfriend who owes you something. The two of you are in a relationship. The wife doesn't really owe you anything. So I think you may be focusing on the wrong thing.
Maybe.
Yeah. Loyalty and commitment, and what does that mean in your relationship?
It's a good one. It's a complex one.
It is, and we don't have all the answers. We don't have all the information.
Yeah. Number 2?
Okay.
Okay. My wife and I have 3 kids. I know the kids change your life forever, but my life with my wife is pretty much over.
Ooh.
Our entire house revolves around our kids, and there is no time or space that I can recall or call my own or share with my wife. Despite having a 52-inch television in our family room, every evening and during the weekends, my wife and mine bedroom is kid central. The kids watch TV in our room, sleep with us, and when they aren't in our bed with us, my wife is in bed with one of them in their room. Oh. They stay up late and run in and out of our room constantly. My wife refuses to hire a sitter so that we can get alone time because she feels guilty because we both work. When we go anywhere, we even have to play kids' music because that's what they like. Seriously, we don't even have an adult conversation, let alone sex, because the kids are constantly around. I love my kids, but I'm starting to resent them, and I feel like my wife uses them as a shield so that she doesn't have to have sex. I don't consider myself the kind of guy who plays around, but I'm still young, 35. I don't want this life for the next 15 years. Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, who could blame him?
Yeah, that's a hard one.
That is. Well, a couple of things. It sounds like his wife, either intentionally or unintentionally, and we don't know, has allowed the role of motherhood to totally consume her. And unfortunately, this day and age, as we talked about earlier, that is not necessarily so uncommon. The pendulum has swung for families to become very kid-centric. But that doesn't help him.
No.
Regardless, it sounds like you need to have an open discussion with your wife and a couple of important things about the children. Children need schedules and boundaries. They really need that. Even when they fight against it, they need that because that provides security and safety for them. Everyone should have their own space, children included. So a husband and wife should be able to know that they have their room or their bathroom or their bed, and that is theirs. Even children who share a room can have their own bed and their own haven. But everyone having their own haven and soft place to go and time alone is really important. Thirdly, and this is really for the couple, a good solid marriage is the backbone to a good solid family. As we all know, when divorce happens, it affects the children and the family. So even though it may seem selfish, it is good self-care to take care of your marriage so that you can be a good, strong family for your children.
I agree.
So that's really important. I think this is not going to be resolved in one conversation, but I would ask your wife to sit down and begin to set time aside, even on the calendar, like on Tuesdays at 9:30, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk. I'd like to talk about this issue. Oftentimes, you know, men and husbands get blamed because they don't want to talk about the important things. So you being vulnerable and speaking to your wife about how you're feeling and what you're struggling with in an honest and respectful way, hopefully you can begin to have these discussions and set boundaries for one another and understand where you're each coming from.
Hope that helps.
I do too.
Okay, the third one. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years. We agreed we would be exclusive. The problem is he was dating a girl when we met, but we broke up without telling her he was gay. Over the 2 years we have been together, I know that he has been in touch with her and even spent time with her. I believe he has been out on straight dates with her and slept with her. Ouch. Ooh. I just feel it in my bones. He insists that he is gay and not straight or bi, and she means nothing to him. I'm confused. Why is he keeping this woman around?
Well, I can see where it would be confusing, but once again, I think this person is focused on the wrong thing. The discussion is whether or not he's straight or gay. The discussion is his commitment to you, and any relationship is only as committed as the least committed party. And so if he's dating someone else or sleeping with someone else or having hookups or anything else, does it really matter if it's a man or a woman? You're his primary relationship, and he's not honoring the agreement that you had or the understanding that you would be monogamous. So I think sometimes it's easy when we're overwhelmed to focus on other secondary issues because it keeps us from having to make the difficult decisions. But I would say here the difficult decision is he's not holding up his end of the bargain, and who he's doing it with is really irrelevant. Okay? So, well, thank you. That was great.
Thanks.
It's really nice to have you had nice insights about this. Dan usually has something snarky to say.
Oh, yeah?
He does. So I just want to say, if you have any questions about forgiveness, please visit us at CoachMonique.com. Like us on Facebook under Coach Monique. Every week we give emotionally intelligent, relevant information, and sometimes not so common sense answers to questions and issues. We post educational videos, and I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Roku, Smart TV, Justin TV, and Club Mondo TV. So we'll catch you in 2 weeks. Once again, thank you. Danielle, you've been a great thing. And check us out, Coach Monique on Facebook, and send in your confessionals. Go to CoachMonique.com, hit the confessional tab. You can submit anonymously. So see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.